I just became aware of this stuff about Max Kaiser talking about um, Jamie Dimon from J.P. Morgan threatening John Corzine, according to him, about taking a customer's money out. I don't know. That could be true. I wasn't even aware of this. You know, and I saw he has his Bernie Madoff's son, Mark, commit suicide. I wasn't even aware they had this story out here. I don't listen to this guy here, Alex Jones. He's too much of, the first thing he started this out was what they got a missile at everybody's door. So if you're a terrorist, you're gonna shoot a missile at your house. Well, go ahead, Thanks. Anyway, I don't trust any of this crap from this and none of this. Well, I'm a very untrusting person. What can I say? Um, when I was commenting about Bernie Madoff's son, I kind of figured, something was up with that. And well, I don't have any like these inside connections or anything like that. I'm not going to make out like that. I know certain things, I've seen certain things, and I have a pretty good head on how things work. Um, I would imagine Jamie Dimon, when it comes to money, people go nuts. They're crazy. So they could say anything. But I don't think John Corzine's life was ever in danger. Because it's stupid for the guy to even say anything like that. It's very stupid as all hell. So that's a bunch of garbage. Um, I'm going to talk a little bit about this inflation versus deflation. I know about 4 months ago, everybody's talking about inflation. The debt crisis. They're constantly adding more debt. The gold went up to over $1,900 an ounce. They downgraded the United States debt. So everybody was expecting gold to be 2,500, 2,200 at least by the end of the year. Well, Ben Bernanke's not stupid, and they don't want to trash the whole system at once. So what's going to happen is, they're doing it basically the way the established people would tell you they're going to do it. And right now, all the gold bugs are starting to think, we're going into deflation. I'm watching this. Gold also glitters during deflations, which it does. But we're not going into deflation because I'll guarantee you, I'm going to call him Rabbi Bernanke, whatever. But I know he's Jewish. But what he's going to do, he's going to do quantitative easing. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And, it's probably a better thing that he's doing that. He's not going to do it all at once. He's not going to hyperinflate the hell out of the economy. He's watching things back and forth. Problem is, to tell you the truth, there is a major problem with the 99% too. Because you look at in the United States, almost everything is non-productive garbage. There's very few people actually building the roads, putting up the wires for the electricity, building the houses, actually doing true essential type goods. A lot of it's being imported. There's so much fluff and entertainment and garbage. If they corralled off the United States and they couldn't import nothing, the place would either have to freaking go back the way it was 100 years ago and actually start producing, or it would sink and no problem. So I don't always blame the 1%. I blame a lot on the 99%. But I don't see anything where we're going into deflation. I know it looks like that right now, and they're talking about gold is still a good thing in deflation, but everybody changed their tune all of a sudden because, the Fed didn't do a bunch of quantitative easing recently as like they were expecting to do it. I think that's all psychological. It's like one word out of Bernanke's mouth one way, and the markets all go, and they change. There actually probably is a lot of inflationary policies being done, but they're watching this stuff careful, So, but even in deflationary periods, they talk about, say, for instance, in the United Kingdom, deflation's average last 6.6 years, and prices fell 22%. But gold prices rarely declined, and in some cases, they increased. So, the gold prices would be holding up nice and good, and the other goods, where they're priced against other goods, the prices of other goods that are essential will be falling. So gold was still a good play, but we're not going to see this. We're going to see inflation because there's some signs, and here's like an article. It was just out today from Reuters. Um, Consumer prices were flat in November 2011 as Americans paid less for cars and gasoline, a further sign of a cool down in inflation that could give the Federal Reserve more room to help a still weak economy. They're going to do it. Rabbi Bernanke's going to just pump out some more money. You know what? I think you ought to send him a thank you note. And Fed watchers, the people like us, also think the U.S. Central Bank could step up bond buying later in 2012. It's going to happen in the first quarter of 2012. It's already been talked about. QE is going to be $800 billion. So you're going to see the metal start taking off again. And everything, including copper, food, the whole deal. So stay tight with the commodities. I was surprised about some of this story. Me personally, sometimes I wonder about all this garbage you hear on these conspiracy channels. I'll tell you, I could tell what's going on anyway without even knowing, just from the way I think. And most people, I should say about some people, I said, they thought this wasn't a suicide with Mark Madoff. And I understood about what's going on without even knowing it. I just seen some things, and that's kind of how it is. I mean, I don't need Alex Jones to tell me anything, or even Max Kaiser. And I'm very suspicious why those two are even. Anybody. There's so little. If you really piss off the elite, you're dead. And it's not like the old days where they do it in the movies and they shoot them or something like that. They give them some life-debilitating disease like, liver cancer, pancreatic cancer, natural causes. And, I could see, I didn't even know this for a fact, but I know one guy who ripped off somebody I worked for $500,000, and then, right before the trial came up, he died of natural causes. I don't know if that's was. It could be, but I've seen a couple things like this, and from what I've read, how the Russians have perfected these things where they can, they can have a politician die of a heart attack, some kind of pancreatic cancer or something like that. So and it's for minor things. I'll give you an example of Sonny Bono when he was congressman. And I watched him on the investigation of the Waco thing, and in Texas, and he was just saying some things that were pretty obvious. Everybody was kind of just keeping their mouth shut or beating around the bush. He was just coming out and enunciating some things clear and obvious. And in my mind, he was killed. I know he had a skiing accident and he hit a tree, and that's conspiracy theory, I would call that. But in my mind, he was killed. And I think maybe they gave him something to disorientate him and stuff. So he makes you wonder, Alex Jones every day, he's telling you to scoop on everything. And then he's telling me there's going to be a missile that could be pointing at your door. Guy's a crackpot, tell you the truth. I think all this stuff is this conspiracy news, yellow journalism. There is conspiracies. But if you think hard how things work, you can figure them out pretty easily. But you got to think like a devil, because that's where people blow it. They don't think, or sometimes they read a little too much into things. I'm not too bad at figuring out what the hell's going on a lot of times. And I got a serious mistrust of Alex Jones. I don't know. That guy, I don't buy it. I don't buy none of this stuff. And I've said before, I don't buy that thing with Ron Paul. I'd vote for him because I like what he stands for. But there's people who have been killed over things for just one thing that Ron Paul stands for. So I think the only way to get around this stuff is, just keep your wits about you. About investing in the markets. I mean, I do it, but You know that most of your money should be outside of the markets, and be as independent as possible and outside the system as much as possible. That's basically the way to play it. Now, this guy like Alex Jones, I don't like him because I think he's a big time rabble rouser. Every day, the New World Order's breathing down your throat. And I don't know what the hell he's talking about. It's been like that. You know what? If you go back to the Roman times, it's been like that. It's been like that before that. It's been like that in the Seleucid Empire. This guy's like, I think he's driving up everybody's emotions through the roof to make people act irrationally. I don't trust this guy. And I didn't even see this stuff when I commented on the last thing, so I mean, that was just me thinking, and I knew this from a long time ago. I mean, you don't need this guy to do your thinking for you, believe me. But don't read too much into every damn thing there is, because a lot of stuff is a conspiracy, even though conspiracies exist, and I hate that word. It really should be, powerful shrewd players with a bottomless appetite for money. That's really what they are. And 99% of the garbage you get off of these channels is garbage. I mean, he's just playing to the audience. Um, and so what? You know, I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to tell you though, there is a bigger danger between the 1% going after each other than the 99%. The most the 99% would do is hold a sign outside in the street and go, "Oh, you guys down with the Fed." They don't do anything. So, but take your money out of the bank. That's a smart thing to do. That's the way to fight them.